Lately, social media has been buzzing with rumors suggesting Rick Ross wanted 50 Cent gone, but what's clear is that Curtis Jackson is still standing. Not long after the situation sparked online chatter, hip-hop's self-styled king of trolls popped back up, energized as ever. Old rivalries, fresh tension, and non-stop controversy between two of the genre's biggest figures are back in the spotlight. But is all of this just internet theatrics, or does it hint at something more serious? Let's break it down. Rick Ross and 50 Cent's explosive history, and the day Curtis Jackson nearly lost his life. Now look, when we talk about real beef in hip-hop, we're not talking about quick tweets or subliminal shots that disappear after a few days. We're talking about Rick Ross and 50 Cent, two heavyweights who've been clashing for nearly 20 years, with neither showing any sign of backing down. This is the kind of rivalry that keeps people glued to their phones, waiting on the next post, the next diss, or the next viral moment that sends the culture into a frenzy. Over the years, these two have traded words, legal moves, and countless petty jabs, enough to fill an entire encyclopedia of hip-hop drama. Rick Ross, known as the self-proclaimed biggest boss, built the Maybach music group empire while constantly dealing with 50 Cent's online trolling. And 50, well, he turned provocation into an art form, even a business strategy, keeping his name buzzing both in the streets and across the internet. But this story carries far more weight when you look past the jokes and social media antics. Long before Curtis Jackson became famous for online stunts, before viral posts or infamous concert trolling moments, he was fighting something far more serious, his own survival. And when we say survival here, we mean that in the most literal life or death sense. Let's rewind to the first time he nearly lost his life. The date was May 24, 2000, sometime between 7 and 8 in the evening. 50 Cent was sitting inside a parked Jeep outside his grandmother's home near 134th Avenue and Guy R. Brewer Boulevard in South Jamaica, Queens. He was simply on the phone, going about what appeared to be a normal evening. That moment changed instantly. An armed individual approached the vehicle and opened fire. This was not described as a warning or random act. Authorities later treated it as a targeted shooting. Multiple rounds were fired through the car window at close range. When the gunfire stopped, Curtis Jackson had been struck 9 times. The bullets hit both of his legs repeatedly, causing severe damage and broken bones. Other shots struck his hand, arm, hip, and chest. One round grazed his face, injuring his cheek and temporarily affecting his speech, damage that still shows today. The aftermath was critical. Despite massive blood loss, he was rushed to Jamaica Hospital Medical Center, where he arrived in extremely serious condition. Doctors immediately performed emergency surgery, working to remove bullet fragments, stabilize broken bones, and stop internal bleeding. His condition was so severe that survival was far from guaranteed. 50 Cent remained hospitalized for roughly 13 days, undergoing multiple surgical procedures during what would become the most difficult period of his life. Trauma surgeons and orthopedic specialists worked tirelessly, crediting their efforts with saving his life and preserving his mobility. The recovery process was brutal. Due to extensive injuries to his legs, Curtis Jackson had to relearn to walk. He moved from crutches to a walker and eventually to walking independently, though the injuries left him with a noticeable limp that would remain a part of his story. Throughout his rise to fame, the aftermath of the shooting remained a constant presence in his life. The facial injury caused lasting complications with his speech, forcing him to spend months focusing on articulation during recovery. Physical therapy quickly became part of his daily routine, centered on regaining movement, rebuilding strength, and coping with persistent pain linked to bullet fragments and damaged bone structures still lodged throughout his body. At the time, investigations into who may have been responsible pointed toward existing tensions involving Ja Rule and Murder Inc., alongside controversy surrounding his mixtape track, Ghetto Quran. That song referenced members of the Supreme Team and alleged criminal activity, which reportedly angered influential street figures. Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a known leader connected to the Supreme Team, was later mentioned during federal testimony in 2005 as having links to the broader situation.
However, it's important to note that no individual was ever formally convicted specifically for carrying out the shooting on 50 Cent. As if the physical recovery wasn't enough, events took an unexpected turn. While 50 Cent was still healing from a near-fatal incident, Columbia Records decided to sever ties with him. The label ended their partnership during his hospitalization, reportedly citing concerns over violence and negative publicity. His debut album, Power of the Dollar, which had been planned for release in July 2000, was shelved indefinitely without public explanation. Within the industry, he was suddenly treated as a liability rather than a rising star. Despite this setback, 50 Cent refused to disappear. While recovering at home, he began recording relentlessly, pouring energy into mixtape projects that slowly rebuilt his momentum underground. That persistence eventually caught the attention of Marshall Mathers, better known as Eminem. This connection led to a deal with Shady Aftermath in 2002, followed by the release of Get Rich or Die Tryin' in 2003, which sold approximately 872,000 copies in its first week. The shooting left more than physical scars. It reshaped 50 Cent's mindset entirely, both personally and professionally. In a 2025 interview with Fox News, he explained that surviving the attack fundamentally changed how he approached life and business. According to him, the experience shifted his focus from street-level survival to long-term strategy, eventually helping him transition into full mogul status, including ventures like the Power television franchise and the widely reported vitamin water deal, valued at over $100 million. With this background in mind, it becomes clearer why his feud with Rick Ross carries added weight. This wasn't simply two artists trading insults online. On one side was a man who survived being shot 9 times and rebuilt his career from the ground up. On the other was an artist whose public image centered on being an untouchable boss figure. So when footage of their confrontation began circulating again, the hip-hop world paused to see what might unfold next. This brings us to the origin of one of hip-hop's most persistent and surprisingly petty rivalries. To fully understand the depth of the conflict between 50 Cent and Rick Ross, you have to go back to where it all started.
The rivalry officially sparked at the 2008 BET Hip Hop Awards, when 50 Cent accused Rick Ross of giving him an inappropriate look. Yes, according to 50, the entire dispute began with a glance, a brief moment where eyes met and egos clashed. That exchange served as the spark, igniting tensions that had likely been building beneath the surface. From there, 50 Cent did what he's long been known for, digging into his opponent's past. What he uncovered became his main weapon against Ross for years to come. 50 revealed that Rick Ross had previously worked as a correctional officer. Within hip-hop culture, this led to accusations that Ross's street persona was exaggerated or misleading, and some critics even suggested it raised questions about authenticity. Rick Ross had carefully built his image around portraying a high-level drug kingpin, someone at the top of the hierarchy. Then 50 arrived with documentation showing Ross had once been on the other side of the system. This revelation fueled what became known as the Officer Ricky campaign. And 50 didn't stop at simply revealing the information. He turned it into a sustained public narrative, using memes, videos, and constant mockery to keep the issue alive in the public eye. Whether viewed as strategic trolling or calculated image warfare, the campaign became a defining chapter in their rivalry, one that refused to fade quietly from hip-hop history. During the period stretching from late 2008 through early 2009, 50 Cent carried out what many observers describe as one of his most controversial trolling campaigns. According to multiple hip-hop sources, this involved allegedly arranging for a look-alike of Rick Ross's then-girlfriend to confront Ross publicly at what has been described as a Miami radio station appearance or promotional event. Footage from that encounter shows Ross reacting with visible anger, pushing the individual away, and appearing to issue verbal threats before security staff stepped in and separated both sides. That same clip continues to resurface online years later, often paired with exaggerated captions claiming Ross attempted to seriously harm 50 Cent. However, available footage and context suggest Ross was reacting to what appeared to be a calculated provocation rather than engaging in a planned attack. Importantly, this incident was only one piece of a much broader campaign and far from the final chapter in their ongoing feud.
In March 2009, 50 Cent escalated the situation by releasing private footage involving Ross's former partner, Lavinia Levinston, adding commentary intended to ridicule Ross. This move crossed significant personal and legal boundaries and ultimately resulted in real consequences. Levinston filed a lawsuit against 50 Cent and later secured a judgment reported to be in the multi-million-dollar range, which was eventually settled. This episode highlighted how far 50 appeared willing to go in targeting rivals, even when facing substantial legal and financial risks as a result. Earlier, in February 2009, 50 released a disturbing video in which he drove past locations connected to DJ Khaled's family while delivering threatening lyrics. This moment further defined how personal his attacks could become, signaling a willingness to involve family members and close associates of those he viewed as opponents. While controversial, the video reinforced the aggressive tone that defined this phase of his public disputes.
Rick Ross, however, did not remain silent. He responded musically with tracks such as Mafia Music in 2009, where he criticized 50's business ventures and challenged aspects of his public image. Ross also referenced 50's personal relationships and made pointed remarks about his commercial performance. These exchanges became some of the most frequently discussed moments in modern hip-hop rivalries, and fans continued to revisit them years later. Throughout the 2010s, the conflict shifted between long stretches of tension and sudden public flare-ups. In 2018, when Ross was hospitalized after being found unresponsive at his home, 50 Cent posted mocking comments and images on Instagram, speculating about the situation in a way many viewed as insensitive. While Ross later recovered, this moment illustrated that the hostility between the two extended well beyond traditional rap competition. The antagonism continued into the 2020s. In 2022, 50 publicly joked about Ross's weight loss journey while repeatedly comparing their respective business successes. 50 frequently referenced his television projects and the widely discussed vitamin water deal, while Ross countered by promoting the growth of Maybach Music Group and his expanding involvement with Wingstop franchises. By mid-2025, online interviews and social media appearances showed Ross once again criticizing 50's early recording contracts and participating in heated verbal exchanges alongside Benzino. Ross also suggested that 50 had been unusually quiet following Drake's widely debated loss to Kendrick Lamar in 2024, framing it as a miscalculation in industry alliances rather than stating it as established fact. In response, 50 made comments about potentially acquiring Ross's master recordings, a statement widely interpreted as symbolic rather than literal. Ownership of an artist's masters represents control over their catalog and long-term legacy, which is why such remarks carry particular weight within the music industry, even when made rhetorically. The viral footage from 2009 continues to circulate today, showing Ross in a tense confrontation during what several outlets identify as a Miami radio station appearance. In the clip, Ross appears to approach the impersonator aggressively, briefly restraining them against a wall while security intervenes. Despite the low-quality phone video, the moment remains a lasting visual reference point in their rivalry. When it first surfaced on platforms like WorldStar Hip Hop and YouTube in 2009, it quickly accumulated millions of views, cementing its place in hip-hop internet history. It resurfaced again in 2014 during another flare-up of the rivalry, then erupted once more in 2023 when TikTok users began reposting edited clips with dramatic background music and on-screen captions like "Ross snaps on 50's clone." The combination of rebranded archival footage, hip-hop meme culture, and platform algorithms that favor controversy created perfect conditions for renewed virality across multiple platforms. And that brings us to a wider look at both men's long histories with conflict, because while their rivalry with each other is legendary, both have built extensive track records of clashing with others.
50 responded through Piggy Bank. Both artists have since acknowledged each other's influence and moved forward without sustained animosity. More recently, 50 has maintained a constant online presence, commenting on Diddy's legal troubles between 2024 and 2026, frequently amplifying allegations and promoting documentary teasers. While these matters remain unresolved, 50's involvement has kept him firmly in public discussion. Now shifting focus to Rick Ross's own conflict history beyond his feud with 50 Cent. Ross experienced notable tension with Jeezy in the early 2010s, driven by disputes over credibility and regional dominance. Unlike many rivalries, this one ended constructively through DJ Khaled's mediation, eventually leading to collaborations such as War Ready. Ross's dispute with Drake represents a more recent and high-profile fallout that peaked in 2024. Once close collaborators on songs like Aston Martin Music and Diced Pineapples, tensions began after Ross aligned with Meek Mill during Drake's 2015 conflict and continued to build over time. In April 2024, Ross released Champagne Moments, which included accusations regarding Drake's appearance, artistic influence, and alleged legal tactics involving cease and desist communications. These claims fueled viral memes, including the widely circulated BBL Drizzy trend. Drake responded through tracks such as Push-Ups. Although Ross suggested in May 2025 that he was open to ending the dispute, indirect commentary has continued from both sides. French Montana became indirectly involved, with Ross alleging that Drake had sent legal threats connected to French. When asked about the situation during a 2025 interview, French abruptly exited the conversation, requesting that the topic never be raised again. Ross's ongoing dispute with Freeway Rick Ross, the former drug trafficker whose name William Roberts adopted as his stage identity, resurfaced in 2025, with both sides exchanging insults related to credibility and personal attacks. In July 2024, Ross performed Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us at a Vancouver show, which reportedly led to a physical confrontation with Drake's supporters in the crowd. The incident highlighted Ross's public alignment with Kendrick during that broader conflict and his willingness to accept backlash. Looking at the broader pattern, a clear contrast emerges. 50 Cent turns conflict into content, using controversy as a sustained engagement strategy that keeps him culturally relevant. Rick Ross presents himself as a composed executive figure, focused on longevity through music and business, even while occasionally responding publicly. What makes their rivalry unique is that neither approach has produced a definitive outcome. 50's tactics have not derailed Ross's career or reputation in the way Ja Rule's was affected, and Ross's calm demeanor hasn't discouraged 50 from continuing his commentary. They remain evenly matched rivals, and based on nearly 2 decades of documented history, a true resolution does not appear likely anytime soon. That's all for today, fam. For more content like this, make sure to click the card showing on the screen.